Welcome to GGN, everyone. It's Monday, October 28th, 2013, and I'm going to cover some Middle East news and some drone news at the end. Syria State TV says that the Syrian army has killed the al-Nusra Front or al-Qaeda leader, and they said they did that on Friday night, this past Friday night, on the Latakia countryside. They say it's worth mentioning that this al-Jilani announced in May his allegiance with al-Qaeda, but distanced himself from the Iraqi branch, despite acknowledging the fact that he received from it financial and military support. Militants abducted the Syrian lawmaker, or a Syrian lawmaker, does the opposition. They're saying that the foreign-backed militants operating inside Syria have abducted lawmaker Mohana Fasil Fayed. They're saying that the militants from the al-Qaeda affiliated Islamic State of Iraq abducted him. Hackers hit Obama on Facebook and his Twitter account. The Syrian Electronic Army takes responsibility for a graphic video. But it says here it says a graphic video depicting Syria's civil war. I came across this article as well. Syrian Electronic Army attacks have been linked to Obama's mentioning of Syria. The frequency of it, October 9th of this month. The frequency of attacks that infamous Syrian Electronic Army carries out may correlate with the number of President Obama's public statements about Syria and its, his supporting of terrorism that they call a civil war. Researchers at Recorded Future, a firm that analyzes publicly available data to assess and predict cyber attacks, call the link a remarkable correlation. Simply put, the more Obama talks about Syria, the more Syrian hackers strike American media targets. It's a full-blown propaganda war. As far as the chemical weapons, Syria meets deadline for their chemical weapons plan. UN inspectors visit 21 of 23 chemical sites in Syria. I'm not really sure what to make of this, whether this is a good thing or bad thing. I guess it's good that there's not going to be chemical weapons, but once they remove them, that actually makes it more likely that they're going to attack Syria. And even if Assad does this, they could still say, well, you did this because you're responsible for the chemical attacks. But like I said before, that's not really their goal anymore, it seems like. It seems more like it's just want to break up Syria. It loosens up, softens the attack on Iran if it does take place ever. A lot of talk about it. You have a Representative Trent Franks from Arizona trying to create legislation authorizing military force against Iran. I covered this from the 24th. You have another neocon, Lindsey Graham, also mentioning his plans to introduce a similar bill in the Senate. Then you have Dick Cheney, saying military action against Iran may be inevitable. I like his logic, though. He says, I have trouble seeing how we're going to achieve our objectives. That's, I guess, the Project for New American Century and different think tank policies for U.S. dollar hegemony and that, and Israeli interest. But it says they don't know how they're going to achieve their objectives short of that. And I doubt very much that their diplomacy will be effective if there's no prospect that if diplomacy fails that we will in fact resort to military force. So in other words, you better do what we tell you, we're going to bomb you. That's their policy. It's called dropping bombs diplomacy. You have this guy, an American Jewish billionaire. He's blasting Obama over negotiations with Iran. He's saying that the U.S. should show Iran nuclear capabilities. U.S. should drop an atomic bomb on Iran. Talking about seizing uranium enrichment program in Iran, he says, what are we going to negotiate about? He says, so you want to be wiped out? Go ahead and take a tough position and continue with your nuclear development. You want to be peaceful? Just reverse it all and we'll guarantee that you can have a nuclear power plant for electricity purposes, energy purposes. He says the current negotiations are a sign of weakness. He says, so a tremendous demonstration of American strength, so they get the message. It's the only thing they understand. This was apparently at this Will Jews Exist event 1022. Something you don't hear about in the news that often is Iran's military having skirmishes or conflicts, killing people. Iran guards kill 3 rebels in Kurdish region. Top commander of the guard says his forces killed 3 rebels and arrested 3 others in the western region that borders Iraqi Kurdistan. On October 10th, rebels killed 6 members of the Revolutionary Guard. It says in April last year, Kurdish rebels killed 4 guard members in the region. And 7 months earlier, the guards declared it had cleared rebels of the Party of Free Life of Kurdistan from the region. Lastly, Iran on Saturday executed 16 rebels after gunmen killed at least 14 border guards in the mountains of Sistan, Baluchistan, a province of southeastern Iran. And back to old Iraq, right? 88 killed, 203 wounded as bombs target Baghdad and Mosul. A series of coordinated bomb attacks. So what you get as a result of the shock and awe dropping bomb policy, you have this policy of co-opting the Arab Spring and backing terrorists, and you get the Libyan failed state policy. Only it's so bad that they can't even really conduct business there. So, but the people there are actually trying to do what? They're trying to get back with the resources, connect with the resources and the distribution of it, so they don't get cut out by some foreign entity like Shell Corporation or whatever. Libyan militia's most valuable hostage is oil. They've seized control of Libya's oil facilities to extract concessions from the government, bringing national oil production down to a third of what it was in the beginning of 2013. In Iraq, they have the same issues again, with Kurdistan trying to sell oil, and it's, quote, defying the central government of Baghdad. But they launched their own government after seizing the key oil infrastructure and created their own army in a bid to improve the bargaining position as they demand semi-autonomy from the central government in Tripoli. Algerian troops find huge arms cache on Libyan border from the 24th, including surface-to-air missiles, rockets, and landmines. It's an arsenal of war, the Algerian source said. You guys probably remember here, 200 kilometers or 125 miles from the Menace gas plant, which was attacked in January by these basic Al-Qaeda militants. It was launched from inside Libya. The attack and Libya's chaos, of course, that was tied to an Al-Qaeda member that was trained by the CIA in Afghanistan, so that's a little sketchy, but they want a presence there. So like I said, wherever the corporations want to go to exploit resources and create refugees, Al-Qaeda will then suddenly appear like they're doing in Mali. That attack and Libya's chaos have left energy companies wary over security in North Africa, like I was saying, where some U.S. oil majors in particular, have begun to scale back. And speaking of Algeria, they announced a major oil well discovery. The national energy firm has discovered a major oil field with about 1.3 billion barrels of oil south of the country. One of the most important that the company has made in the past 20 years. And besides hearing about Al-Qaeda presence somewhere where they want to go and exploit, you also hear humanitarian issues, tugging at your heartstrings, whether it's the children or starvation or thirst or whatever. I saw this. Dozens of Niger migrants die of thirst in desert. They've had stuff where helicopters have crashed or boats have sunk. So dozens of migrants to Algeria from Niger had died of thirst in the desert south of Sahara after the vehicle broke down. It says 19 survived. But mostly, it says here, including numerous women and children who were attempting to emigrate to Algeria, died of thirst in mid-October. We have experiencing Morocco as a woman traveling alone. So you've seen a lot of the stuff like Saudi Arabia woman defies authorities over female driving ban. And it used to be a time where actually I remember my grandmother, she never had a license, she didn't drive. So, I mean, that's just in the past 50 years that it's changed to where women are all driving now. I'm not saying that they shouldn't or whatever. Just when I see stuff like this, Saudi Arabia, it was way worse. Those Gulf monarchies are way worse, and somewhere like Syria where they're saying they're being oppressed, and the democracies support terrorists to go in there and to overthrow the governments or create instability. But they like to co-opt things like this, like women's issues, feminist issues, civil rights, human rights, whatever, like I said. So you're seeing a lot of this now. I've actually made a video about Saudi Arabia possibly being another country that might actually go under. Now that the West has basically sucked them dry of their oil, they don't really have much to offer, which is why they just bought a bunch of, missiles and military equipment. And also, it keeps them from actually being a threat. If you keep their people uprising against the government after you're done using them, then it would be a good strategy to keep them off your back. This is experiencing Morocco as a woman traveling alone. So I only included this because, again, it's the same type of stuff. Kerry to visit Morocco early November. You have to remember the British ships actually sent ships off the coast of Gibraltar near Morocco and that. So it's about not recolonizing North Africa, but it's definitely, Africa is going to be the theme of these videos as it has been in the recent past. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is to visit Morocco in early November during a tour in the northern African region. Kerry's first visit to the North African country since being appointed chief U.S. diplomat will take place on November 7th. The Moroccan government refused to confirm or comment on the visit. In neighboring Algeria, they cited that Kerry would be traveling to Algiers in early November without giving specific dates. Also, Washington has historic ties with Morocco, which is an important regional ally with former U.S. President Bush on the War on Terror. A little tidbit here, and I'll move on. In April, Morocco canceled an annual joint military exercise after angrily rejecting a U.S. proposal to task the UN peacekeeping force in the disputed territory with a human rights monitoring mandate. These are the same people that are drone bombing people. Alright, France begins large-scale military operation in Mali. They've gotten more support to UN troops, peacekeepers. The French military has announced the launch of large-scale operations in Mali in a bid to avert what they refer to as a resurgence of the Islamist organizations. They say it was the first time we've seen forces of significant size working together. But it's about autonomy, too. Remember, I've mentioned this many times before. They talk about rebellion by the Tuareg separatists that threatened the French-backed Malian central government. So Al-Qaeda went there. The Tuaregs fought with the French and the central government to get rid of these Al-Qaeda terrorists. And then they promised the Tuaregs their own autonomy, and of course they didn't get it afterwards. So the Tuaregs have been, acting up, being bad boys, and now Al-Qaeda showed up, and now the French are back. India or Indo-Russian war drills in South Sudan-like scenarios, says the army. Troops of India and Russia are engaging each other in war games, codename exercise Indra, basically in scenarios resembling South Sudan, where Indian troops are presently deployed as part of a UN peacekeeping mission facing similar challenges. It's a joint exercise. Then there's a pirate attack in Nigeria. U.S. sailors were seized from October 24th. They've seized 2 sailors from an oil supply ship off the coast of Nigeria. I heard about piracy going down, but all of a sudden it's back in the news. U.S. officials said it was not a terrorist act, but were concerned about the rise of piracy off West Africa. So that is kind of unusual. West Africa, it's usually in East Africa. But again, this is just like human rights, piracy. That'll crop up when they need to go there. Britney Spears' music used to scare off Somali pirates. I think this is an older story, but it says here a merchant Navy officer on a huge tanker off the east coast of Africa says music is really an effective way of deterring pirates in their high-speed skiffs. They had certain songs basically chosen by their security team because they thought pirates would hate them most. These guys can't stand Western culture and music, making Britney hits perfect. So this is, I think, old news, but they're bringing it back in there. Also, there's that movie, I can't remember, with Tom Hanks or something like that, the USS Alabama or something like that. So they're bringing piracy back into it. It's directed towards Somalia. They have to have a reason to go there besides it just being a failed state. And then you have the Kenya Westgate Mall shooting. It was blamed on Somalia or Al-Shabaab. It was actually a Norwegian guy, an immigrant, that was from Somalia, but that just makes it a little more sketchy there. Speaking of Somalia, U.S. drone strike kills at least 6 in Somalia. It says here 6 civilians. And I wasn't able to get the drone news in this first video, so I'll just bust it into a second video. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you.